Oh, hello there. Want to learn how to take your photography from this to this? Learn how to in this short video. Hello, I'm with Rattlesnake Photography, and today I would like to give you a basic tutorial for Photoshop. And today I'm not going to be giving you really in-depth big tutorials on how to do really technical Photoshop things. I would just like to give you, as an amateur photographer, maybe a professional, aspiring professional photographer, um, a bit of a hint into the Adobe Photoshop world. So today I'm going to be showing you how to take a basic photo and make it look more professional. Just a photo you can take anywhere. So I have here two files here. And there are two different types of files you can get. One is a RAW file. Most cameras, most good cameras, especially Canons, I use a Canon 450D or anything above that will have a RAW file. And in that case, it's called a CR2 file. You're going to want to get that. I'll show you how to do it with just the JPEG file that you get from your camera, but first, let's do it with the CR2 RAW file. So you're going to take your file and import it into Photoshop. And as you see here, it's actually a pretty good photo. There's a nice heron there, and you have our subject here, and then you have the background. And there's a little bit of blur because there's some texturing there's more in-depth foliage right about here. But what you're going to basically do is, let's just say you took the photo and it was super washed out, like that. Now I have a little function here on my Adobe that allows me to have red where it thinks it's overexposed. In that case, you're going to go over to this menu here and look at all these fancy things. So the temperature is not really important and the tint is usually not important. You're going to take the exposure, and in my case, my exposure was actually pretty good. It was at 0. And you're going to take it down to where, and you're really going to have to experiment here with your eyes and stuff. So you're going to take it down until this is too dark, this is too bright. So you're going to take it down somewhere in the middle. And by the way, I am using Adobe Photoshop Elements 10. This will work for any other version of Photoshop except for one major difference, which isn't that major. Next, you're going to take recovery. Now, what recovery does is, let's just say there's a bunch of white here. It darkens it without really darkening it. It makes basically equalizes the entire area in exposure, so there's no overexposed parts. But in my case, my exposure was pretty good. You might want to put the recovery just a tiny bit, maybe 5. Next is fill light. Let's say you have to take your exposure down and you don't want to make it too dark, but it's still sort of overexposed. You can use your fill light, for example, here. You can use your fill light to make it just a tiny bit brighter in some areas. So I always like to put the fill light a little bit higher, like about there. Next, to give it a real professional look, you're going to take the blacks, and right now it's on 5. You're going to take it up a bit. Don't make it too black, or it'll look like that. Then you're going to take it and just make it just a little bit more. Take it maybe a little bit up. And then the brightness, if your brightness, you're going to experiment with that, see what you like. I like this around there. And the contrast is always good to turn it up. It really depends on your camera, what look you're looking for, what type of picture you're looking for, and what version of Photoshop you're using. Usually the Photoshop part is pretty good. Now next you're going to look at clarity, vibrance, and saturation. Clarity makes the image clearer. If you turn it down, then it sort of blends together. If you turn it up, then it becomes a little more clear. Vibrance makes the colors more vibrant, as you see, putting it up to 100. Taking it down, there's still colors, not like it's completely desaturated, but it's not the best color. Now saturation, of course, saturates the color, makes the colors more colory, if that's a word. What you're going to want to do is clarity. Usually your picture is going to be okay. Like mine isn't blurry. If your picture is blurry, then you might want to put it a little bit higher. At maximum 200, that's not usually the best, but you might want to do that. Usually I put mine around 15. And especially if I take a good picture, I'll put all my settings for clarity, vibrance, and saturation at 15. So I like to keep the vibrance and saturation at the same level. So I usually put 15, 15, and 15. We don't want to put 50, 50, and 50 because that'll make it look completely fake. But if we put it at 15, and in some cases you're going to have different clarity and different vibrance and different saturation, but usually that's good. And if you want to hype it up a lot, make it look a little fake, but still pretty good, more artistic, you can put it at 20. So I'm going to do it 20 for now. Next, you're going to open your file. You're going to click that open button. Now it's actually in your Adobe. Now, if you're in Adobe Elements 10, Adobe Photoshop Elements 10, you're going to go over to these tabs here. There's one for full, one for quick, and one for guided. Guided is not usually a very, it's not usually, it's for very, I don't know how to say it. It's within barriers, so you can't do very much. It's not really very artistic. You're going to go, full is okay. You're going to go over to quick, and this is where if you're in Adobe Photoshop Elements, then it'll be at quick. Otherwise, there's going to be another tab. I do not know about Photoshop CS6 or something like that on the Mac. Now, for a nature shot like this, you're going to use the fix bar. Now, this fix thing, it's called Smart Fix, and it fixes what it thinks is wrong in the picture. So, if you see before and after, it's beginning to, but usually with the Smart Fix, at least on Adobe Photoshop Elements 10, if you put it all the way to up to 100, the colors become a little weird. It usually brings out the blues and the greens instead of the reds and the oranges and yellows. So usually I only put it at 3 or somewhere between 3 or 10. If it's a good photo, then I'll leave it as is or maybe put it at a 10. Sometimes if it's really bad and you just want to get an artistic look, you can put it up there. It's not the best though. So I'm going to put mine at about, let's see, let's put it at 9 or somewhere around there. Next, the shadows you'll see later in another tutorial. In this picture, we don't need shadows. Shadows basically makes it, takes away shadows and makes the color brighter and stuff like that. We usually don't want that, so I'm going to leave that there. Midtones, if you turn it up, it makes it darker. If you turn it down, it blends together, and it basically does that. And I'm going to put this back to 0. You don't want midtones. Usually in a nature shot like this, you're going to want highlights. And if you turn up the highlights, it sort of begins to, especially in this picture where there's a lot of stuff it's focused on, this brings it to where it focuses on a certain spot. So if you turn up the highlights too much, it doesn't look too good. But usually, especially with this picture, you might want to do it anywhere from 10 to 20. And if it's really bad, then you might want to put it at 30, but usually that's okay. And down here, this is pretty much it. This is our photo done. So, but just to tell you about some of the other tabs here, this is saturation again, if you can bring it up and it looks really weird, or bring it down and it's black and white. If you want black and white, then good for you. You can have that. And I'm just going to set this back. Okay, hue. It sort of changes the hue, whether it's red or blue or whatever. I'm going to put that back to its original. Temperature, it either turns it blue or reddish. And reset this again to 50. And tint is the same thing as temperature except with greens and pinks. Let me see if I can reset it. Okay, and sharpen, you're usually not going to need sharpen, the sharpen tool. Maybe if the picture is sort of blurry, what the sharpen tool does is it makes the picture sharper, as you see. It looks more like an older picture, maybe from the 90s or something. Usually you're not going to want sharpen. So that was just some of the other stuff. And this is your picture practically done. And some of the improvements, I'm going to show a before and after here. Some of the improvements are, you can see the subject a little better. There's a more colorful background. And really what you're going to want to do is remember when you took the photo what it looked like and try to make it look like as much as real life as possible. Because, for example, if I just turn up the saturation, that doesn't look real. Even if I turn it down a little bit, that doesn't look real. It looks pretty, just doesn't look real. So I'm going to get a before and after. As you can see on the left, the color is more brought out, and we can see our subject, which is the heron, is more it's more visible and it's less blended in with the rest of the surroundings. And as you can see on the right, the color is washed out, it's not as vibrant. And basically, this Photoshop technique will just improve your photos to the originally what you saw with your eye. And as always, thank you for watching. Please like the video if you did enjoy it, and I will see you next time.